You're with the Retro Hour podcast, and we're here today with Sean Baptiste. And Sean's pretty cool. He's been working with, quite a few companies, and it's going to be an interesting episode because we're going to talk about the kind of changing and growing world of gaming management and communities, which are really important because, we all love gaming and communities are a huge part of it. How they've kind of developed out of the indie scene as well as some of the original companies that he was working for, which was Harmonix, which was a really interesting company with rhythm games, and that led on to, Rock Band later on, which we're going to go into depth with as well. So it's going to be a really interesting interview, and I think we've not really covered gaming communities much. So how you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on. And we've got this question that we always drop on our guests first, and that's, what was your first gaming experience?
Oh, my first gaming experience. So I had the incredible fortune as a child to grow up near like this blue collar beach in Massachusetts, like whatever. It had a whole bunch of arcades, and you could go down there. So that was, anytime that me and my brother acted up or whatever, and they just wanted to, my parents or my grandparents or whoever was babysitting wanted to quiet us down, they'd take us to the arcade, to Joe's Playland in Salisbury, Massachusetts. And I believe it would have been, it probably would have been something like Pac-Man. But the first thing I really remember playing is Joe's Playland at the time, and I hope they have not gotten rid of this game, is the original version of Death Race, the one that got banned and taken out of arcades. They did not get rid of it. They had it
for being too graphic, wasn't it? Even though we think graphic of it now, it's just pixels.
Yeah, when you hit somebody, they would turn into a gravestone. And that was considered too graphic of violence for the 1978 or whatever year it was. So.
That's brilliant. Do you remember what your first home system was? Which I imagine may have been a couple of years later.
Yeah, actually, it was the Atari 2600. That was the first one we really had. Although I should say we did have at at my grandparents' house, we did have the plug-in Pong, like where you just plugged it in and then it only played Pong, and that was it. That was all you were going to get. And we didn't play that one too much because it was, you got sick of it pretty quickly.
You got bored of it pretty quick.
It's interesting. You have a background in theatre as well, which is interesting, the connection between theatre and games and kind of performance and interactivity. I was wondering how you kind of came from that world of theatre and then decided to, start pursuing video games.
Yeah, so I had been working as an actor and a playwright and director, whatever. Basically, whatever needed to be done, I would show up and do it because I still love it. I don't do it as much anymore, but I still love it. And this was the late 90s. I had gone to college for acting, for performing arts. And didn't graduate, but who does if you're trying to be an actor? Like, what's the point? So I had been working and that sort of thing, making ends meet, basically by working in a video store. When people would come up with their popular, whatever big hit movie come up and be like, hey, what do you think about this movie? I'd be like, that's crap. You should watch this movie that like 10 people have ever seen. This like indie thing that I wanted to be the cool VHS guy. Video store guy. So while I was there, I ended up getting a brain tumor, being diagnosed with a brain tumor, which functionally took me out of commission for about 2 years. The where I just couldn't do anything at all, for the most part, except be at home and play lots and lots of video games. That was quite honestly about what I could do. So I started playing all this interesting stuff. It was mostly on the PlayStation 1 is the console I had. I ended up getting a PlayStation 2 later, but it was mostly PlayStation 1 that I played on. And I was, really enjoying it, started doing some PC stuff. And I said to myself, this is kind of like, I was like, I kind of want to do this. I think I kind of want to do the games thing. Like, this seems like something that would pay the bills. Always nice. But also that, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people in games have theater backgrounds of some sort, or performance or whatever. And I think there's a good reason for it, which is that the thing that attracts us to games is the interactivity. Movies are very passive. You sit and you watch. The performance already happened. The editing already happened. You sit, you watch it, and you just take in what it is. There's no interaction between you and the actor at all. Whereas in a live performance, even if it's, a script, it's not an improv performance, whatever, the energy from the audience and what's happening on stage, it interacts. There's a magic that happens there. There's an alchemy in the energy between the people performing and the people in the audience. And
it's interesting you say that because Joe's a performer, he's in a metal band as well. And I'm an old theatre technician, so I used to work on the West End and in Camden as well. And a lot of the pressure of a performance, everyone would be trying to get one thing to come together, but also you'd be playing on the lighting desk like a video game.
Yep.
You'd have all these buttons that you'd have to press in time, in sequence. Quite like a rhythm game, actually, when they had the cues going and stuff like that.
Yep. And then you have your stage manager who's calling out cues, but you're like, I know that's wrong. They're off. We need to change it. Yeah. Because I did lighting on as well for a number of shows. Including shows where I didn't have to go. I had none of the rehearsals and they were like, just do it as you go. And I'm like, oh, this will be a lot of fun. I'll just design lights as we go. So that'll be fun. But you do have that. Yeah, there's this energy about it that I think is very similar to games. And I think actually for theater tech too, there's something similar where you spend a lot of your time trying to figure out what the bugs are. Wait, why isn't that light going off? Like what?
It got really advanced, like, it would be like a rhythm game. There'd be someone going Q 4, 5, 6, standby, go, go, standby, go, and it'd be like a ding, ding, ding kind of a sequence when you're playing along. Yeah.
Or replacing cables mid-show because something burnt out somewhere, or like a gobo fell out of its slot, or all the things that can go wrong. But it just really attracted me, and I was like, I really, really, really want to do games. Once I'm feeling better, like once I can work again, I want to do games. So after I had a number of surgeries, all of that, and right before the surgery, so this would have been late 2003 into early 2004. I had helped out doing some beta testing for Painkiller, like the original Painkiller, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot, completely unpaid. But like just learning how to like do that and everything like that. So I had the other game I'd been playing for fun was Frequency and Amplitude, which were two early harmonics rhythm games, which are just fantastic. I think they did put out a reboot of Amplitude a few years ago, kind of, but these initial ones were so weird and so interesting, so unlike anything I had ever played. Maybe Rez is the closest thing to them. Another fantastic game, which I had been playing at the time as well. So I realized while I was playing it, I was going through the credits, that thing that you almost never do, where you go, press the credits and you watch the credits roll. And I saw that their offices were in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which was only about 45 minutes from where I lived, or where I grew up. So I made it my mission that as soon as I got better, I was going to apply to them, and I was going to just start at the bottom, like at the time, like what it was, which was like the thing that was like an entry level job, which was QA, and then work my way into the industry. So I wrote an email, like basically as soon as I got home from the hospital from brain surgeries, I'm like sitting down, be like, I'm gonna send my resume and we're gonna get this going. I'm writing a cover letter. So I send that all along, and I think probably within 24 hours, I get an email from a previous guest of this show, Mike Dornbrook, who was kind of running that sort of like ops for CFO ops for for harmonics. And he's like, hey, look, thank you for applying. Pretty sure this isn't going to happen. We're not really going to look for somebody right now, but good luck with your job search. And I got that and I was like, well, I guess I just apply again. So I just applied roughly every 2 weeks for about 3 months. Just kept applying, kept getting turned down, eventually not even hearing back. Like, it was just like, no, we're not going to do that. So, it turns out, a friend of a friend had gotten a job there as QA, and they were trying to bulk up their QA department for, a game that they were working on called Karaoke Revolution, which was through Konami, which is like a work for hire thing. So they put in a good word for me. I applied again. And this time they reluctantly brought me in for an interview, which I guess I managed to do just well enough to get a job. Singing into a microphone 8 to 12 hours a day. I remember... this is the early days of QA in many, many ways. Not the earliest days, obviously, but still early days. And what was so funny about that was we had like a team of, I don't know, there's probably like 8 people testing this game. There was one computer to log bugs. Everybody would go off to different rooms to sing and test their stuff, and you'd bring a notebook and you'd write the bugs down in your notebook, and you'd try to log time when you could on that main computer, and everybody would go in there and then you just try to log as many bugs as you could.
In 2003 as well. 8 of you for one computer.
Yeah. It was so funny. But there was something so beautiful about it because it did teach you how to write a really good bug. Because you only had so much time and whatever, so you wanted to find all the bugs you can and make it as succinct as possible so you could log them, keep your quota up, make sure that you looked really good, so they'd keep you. They didn't keep me. That I got laid off at the end of that project, so I only worked there for 2 months. Because that was just how they worked. Like the people were if they liked you, they'd bring you back. But you would just go. Boston had this really good video game community of developers. So, there was just all sorts of different companies in town that you could kind of rotate through. I ended up at a company that was making, it was called Stainless Steel Studios. They made historical RTSs, which I was 100% not into doing it all. I ended up doing QA there, but then within like a couple of months, Harmonix called me back, and I was like, "Yes, I want to go back with the cool people.
Bring me back.
I want to go back and play Rock Band."
So you mentioned frequency, and games like Res and stuff like that. Obviously, you've done, the karaoke game. Did you think at the time, 2003? This is, a couple of years before the big boom of the rhythm games. At the time,
Right.
I wasn't playing rhythm games. I was stuck in FPSs and RPGs. Did you ever think these are going to blow up like it did?
No, I mean, I kind of always hoped it would because they were really legitimately really fun. I've always been like a music guy, so I was always kind of hoping, and I always was a karaoke guy, so it was kind of fun to just work in the karaoke things. I just didn't think they were going to be huge. I knew like DDR had been big. And some of those things from out of Japan. I knew Res was beloved, and I really liked it, but I also knew it wasn't like something that changed the industry or anything like that based on sales. So I didn't necessarily...
It wasn't the biggest seller, was it? Frequency as well.
No. Frequency and Amplitude it was critical darlings. Like everybody loved them, and they were your video game designer's favorite game, but that was it. They were the Velvet Underground of games. So it wasn't. No one was really. People liked them, but they weren't widely played. Partially because a lot of the ways games were sold at that time, in a lot of ways, was you would go to your big box store, electronics store, and they would have the demos up, and they would have the show gameplay. If you look at Frequency and Amplitude and you try to look at what's happening in that game, it doesn't make sense. Like, you don't immediately understand what you're doing in a game or putting it together. So, yeah, that was kind of, I think that was probably the downfall of that. But I was certainly hoping that they would be big. I just didn't have a lot of faith in it.
Yeah, I think you said you were a fan of them, originally, and there was quite a small fan base there, but
Yeah,
dedicated.
I mean, mostly I think it was all of us who had played Parappa the Rapper and was just hoping that would continue happening. Like, Parappa the Rapper. I mean, like, still, who isn't bringing that back? It seems insane to me. It's a beautiful game. It's wonderful.
That is amazing. I think like stuff like the online multiplayer of Amplitude as well probably made it grow. You were managing some of the forums then.
I did
then.
not so. Amplitude was well out of its like sales time for the most part. Like it had been out for a little while before I started at Harmonix. So I was in QA. I ended up moving out of QA after Guitar Hero. I moved into tech art. So I was helping with animations and rigging and all of that. But I was so not good at it that I spent a lot of my time instead like just on the forums, which was freak.net, I think is what it was. It was freq.net. Don't know who owns it now. I wouldn't trust going in there. I have no idea what would happen. It's probably malware. Maybe not. I don't know. But I would go on there and there was like 20, maybe 30 people in those forums, like fans of that game. I go on and talk and try to, rejuvenate it a little bit. And so I was working on tech art, helping out with the animations and everything. Again, not great at it. And Mike Dornbrook, who I mentioned earlier, he, having come from Infocom and everything, and he had been as the president of Infocom, running Infocom, he handled all of the community stuff, like, how to talk to the community, how to answer fan mail, how to like present at events and all of that. And he saw what I was doing on the forums and was like, hey, do you want to do like this instead? Like, just like, because once Guitar Hero had blown up so big and it was huge and it really changed the company so drastically in a very, very short amount of time. And then, of course, Activision came in, bought Red Octane, and then wanted to buy us, which nobody was interested in, really. And we decided we wanted to do Rock Band. We wanted to do a full band game. And they were like, well, if we do this and we aren't with Activision anymore and we're functionally going to be self-publishing, we're going to need somebody who runs the community or builds the community. So I took that job. Because I was the only one who wanted to do it, I think.
How strong was the connection between Red Octane, who were developing Guitar Hero, and then Harmonix?
So my understanding of exactly how that relationship was so Red Octane, they didn't make games or really publish games. They made plastic instruments. They made controllers, or they made not plastic instruments. Yeah. They made controllers, like third-party controllers. And they saw, what was happening in Japan with like, with the various instrument-based games over there. And they kind of wanted to replicate that in the United States. And they had an idea for a plastic guitar controller. And they wanted a developer. And since I can't imagine, I don't think there were really any other developers in the United States really working on music games who had that sort of, that on their CV. They came to us, and I can honestly say nobody at the company thought it was going to work. What we did, the reason why that got taken by the company is pretty much everybody at Harmonix was in bands. Like, we were a company of musicians who were all in rock bands, all of that, which was super cool. And they, like, we just were kind of, I think, like the concept, like for the people who accepted, was just like, wait, so we're going to get to make a game with like Bowie in it? Like, and, like some other bands, hey, can we throw our own bands on there too? Like, whatever, just to make up the difference. And they're like, yeah. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, if this game fails, it fails. But we got to work on a Bowie thing, and like, we got to do like, we got to put our own songs in a game. That's kind of rad. So yeah, let's just do it. But nobody thought it was going to be a hit at all.
I thought it was a really interesting time when it kind of entered the gaming world because, as Joe said earlier, you know, you're surrounded by FPSs. There's a lot of like kind of violence and there's a lot of stuff like Grand Theft Auto and sandbox games, but there's not really kind of creative title. You know, is that what you thought really caught with Guitar Hero? That, you know, like you're actually doing something, you're creating something within a game. You know, even if you are playing to a set kind of pattern.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny how similar Guitar Hero is to Karaoke Revolution. I mean, it's the same engine, it's the same backing technology in many ways, and that's why it was so fast. Like that game was developed in under a year, like Guitar Hero, which is insane. Can you imagine like a game made in under a year at this point for the most part? Like I think that RV game that just came out, I think was made in 6 months, but that's it just doesn't happen. And even at the time, it didn't really happen. So it just hit the zeitgeist. People were ready for, I think, rock music again for a little while because it'd been a lot of EDM, I think, as well. So it stood out in so many ways that I think didn't feel like a retread. It felt refreshing and new.
And I think stuff like, you know, that obviously the big companies are playing with stuff like the iToy and trying to get that like interactivity, and until the Wii really landed and blew up, I think Guitar Hero was one of the, you know, of first things that brought people like back into the living room to play together and you know, enjoy stuff.
In fact, the iToy, that had been the previous game before Guitar Hero outside of Karaoke Revolution, was a game called iToy Anti-Grav.
Okay. I remember that,
which was a snowboarding, vaguely rhythm game that used the iToy. And I have somewhere in here, I still have the original testing glove. It's like this green, because they had to like track where your hands were. So you had to wear these literally, you know, those white gloves that like, you know, you pick up from when you're cleaning or whatever, white cotton gloves. They had taken that and spray painted it green, and I have it somewhere. It's somewhere in my office because I just think it's like the funniest thing ever. But so we had been working on that, but this was the first thing that there was no real separation between you physically doing something and what was happening in the game. And then, you know, if you did well, awesome rock music came out of your speakers, and if you did poorly, it sounded terrible, and you just, it was just like, there was this amazing, it felt so visceral and so immediate.
You actually are credited of doing some of the, you know, development and artwork on the game as well. What's the story there from like, it says that you did some of the tech work on it as well.
Yeah, I think that, so for the beginning of Rock Band, I hadn't quite, but with development, I hadn't completely moved over to community yet, so I was still doing some tech art. So I had done some research on like volumetric lighting and fog, and I had done a little bit of like stuff. I didn't create any of the art. I'm not the best artist, but I was helping out, supporting the artists and trying to help out with some like animation tech and all of that. So yeah, it was more along those lines.
I wondered then, you know, Guitar Hero, it was huge. How big was the community then compared to this small community that you had before with, you know, harmonics and the early stuff going on to that massive hit that, you know, people are all discussing and flooding.
Yeah, so it was one of the weirdest things ever. So we had gone from like a community on a forum of like 20, 30 people, you know, maybe 10 people regularly, other people stopping in every now and again. And then Guitar Hero dropped, and it didn't really put more people into our forums. And the reason for that is because Red Octane was publishing. So I think technically they had the forums, and they mostly used it for support, as I recall. So we didn't get a lot of bleed over on that until we announced Rock Band. And once we announced Rock Band, we went from, you know, 20, 30 people to 20,000, 30,000 people on a forum, you know, on a daily basis. And I think by the end of it, we were closing in on 400, 500,000 people in that community.
Were there much like much of the company looking at what users were saying and thinking, right, can we put this in? Can we, hearing what the Guitar Hero users wanted and then kind of applying that?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Certainly, we always did weekly reports on what people were saying on there. I would have to stand up in front of the entire company and give like an oral report in front of everybody while they were eating about what people were saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's always been kind of like my approach to community, which is I've always considered myself more of like that community in games is kind of like being an ombudsman at a newspaper, which is you work for the newspaper, but you don't work for the newspaper. You know what I mean? You're trying to deliver the news they don't always want to hear, and be like, this is what people are saying, and this is what probably needs to be adjusted to, change that. So that's always been my approach, is sometimes being like, okay, so this isn't going well or whatever.
So obviously at this point, Rock Band's, well, before Rock Band came out, when you first kind of heard the project for Rock Band and everything, what was your kind of like initial reaction of like, okay, we've got the guitars with Guitar Hero, we've done the karaoke part of it with the singing and everything, and now we've got the drums as well, and now all of a sudden we're gonna be pitching out like the full band, and if you want the full setup, it's going to cost £200 or $200. What was the initial kind of like reaction there from the community, and also I guess the reaction from the insiders as well when you guys first saw it and first got to play test it and stuff like that? What were those initial reactions?
I think everybody was, as I recall, everyone was kind of over the moon. Like the community was always interesting, especially in the early days, because before Rock Band fully hit, like from when we announced it till when it actually dropped, it was a very odd time because people didn't know what to expect. They didn't know how, like, is it going to be like Guitar Freaks meets Drum Mania and all at the same time? And then Karaoke Revolution is in there. And wait, what's going to happen with the bass? And, but at the same time, I think there was that idea, like anybody could look and go, oh, I understand how that's going to work. I understand, like, and as long as they can make it functionally work, I understand what that feeling's going to be. And playing with my whole family over the holidays is going to be dope. Like, I can't wait. And the first time we actually got to play it in the office, it was magic, man. Like there's no getting around it. It felt magical. I think, the hardest part was, I think there were like 3 songs that you could play. Because as licensing would come in, we were working with MTV had bought us at that point. So, we had a lot more access to musical acts, be able to get stuff. So you get really excited about what the next drop was. But I think like the first 3 songs were like, it was like Black Sabbath and like something else, like 2 other things. I think there was maybe a Zeppelin thing on there, but everything was covers done by one of the guys at the company, Jason Kendall, who was in the band, the Amazing Royal Crowns, who are just an incredible rockabilly band. So sick. But it was just really, really funny because you'd be like, that's just Kendall's singing on there. But when you got a whole group, everybody had to form a band like in the company. So you'd have like, to say it was like a 4-person band, so you'd have a bass, vocals, guitarist, drummer. You try to have everybody, not anybody doubling up on anything. And you'd have to meet, like that became part of your job, like that, like at least once or twice a week, that band had to meet. You had to check out time in one of the rehearsal spaces and sit down and play through the new songs and like give feedback and all of that. And man, that was just exciting. It felt exciting. And I still remember when the first time when we had moved we had an old office in Cambridge, at 675 Massachusetts Ave. And then we ended up renting another place next to it at 625 Massachusetts Ave. And, I remember that it was the day that they, in the new office, they pulled up with like an 18-wheeler behind the building. And this was just like this side street behind the building. We just had a back door that went out to, because Mass Ave is kind of like a very busy street. It's a major thoroughfare through Cambridge. But on this back street, there's like an 18-wheeler, and they just started dumping out boxes, like 300, 400, 500 boxes of Rock Band. And that's like the full band sets. Like, you remember how big those things were. Huge, just packing them. And we had to get them in there because everybody got a free copy, obviously. And it was super rad. But I still remember seeing it for the first time and just, again, it's another magical moment where you can't believe that this is like real. And we had like a fireman's brigade. So it was like everybody in the company lined up next to each other, all the way from the back door, up the stairs, up more stairs, through office buildings, through people's cubicles, out through the back, down like another pair of stairs, down the stairs, upstairs, and then into like the main like kitchen area, like where people ate. Because that was the only space where there was enough room for all of these boxes. But it was just a line of people handing boxes to each other, and just passing it down the line all the way from downstairs, because that was the only way to get everything up there. And just immediately feeling like this was going to be the biggest thing I ever had.
Yeah, I think it was one of the biggest video games in physical size as well. It was huge. Was there a bit of a risk then? Because like, I remember when it came out and I thought, this is a bit late. It felt like, Guitar Hero had taken over the world. People loved doing air guitar in the 80s, and then they could eventually do it. You had the 40-year-old guys doing it as well as the younger ones and everything. But then it kind of went on for a while, and then Rock Band came out. And was there a bit of a risk because it wasn't like a guaranteed success?
Yes and no. I think part of it was we knew it would, or felt pretty confident that it would do well. And part of the reason why is because like Guitar Hero now was Activision. All with Activision. They gave it to, I think the first developer of the new Guitar Hero without harmonics was Neversoft. And although like the Tony Hawk games were so sick, like those were great games, I love them. I love Neversoft. But they weren't musicians first and foremost. And they also, like, the thing about Guitar Hero was it was our engine. It was Harmonix's engine, not that wasn't something they got to use. They didn't get to continue using that engine. They had to come up with a whole new thing for it, which is why those gems are no longer 3D. They're 2D. If you notice, like it goes from Guitar Hero 2, where they're 3D gems coming down the track, to these sort of flat 2D gems. That was just one of the many things in their animation system had to change. So we knew we could compete because it was the thing we invented in the first place, in so many ways. But I think also there was just this feeling like we got the whole band. Like Guitar Hero had they didn't come out with the whole band, I think, until like a year later when we were putting out Rock Band 2. So it was a feeling like, look, there's people who want to drum. There's people who want to, sing. There's people who want to like play with their entire family, just like over the holidays, just sitting around playing through stuff. We know that like moms and dads are going to want to show like older music to their kids and like get them into it. Like, so I think there was that sort of feeling. And also since we had been bought by, one of the biggest media companies in the United States, and they like Viacom, which owned MTV and MTV owned us, that like, there was a good chance that we had what we needed for it.
I think, one of the things that I'm going off our script right now, but one of the things that, I was like prime kind of like age for Rock Band Guitar Hero. I remember when it came out, I think I was finishing school. I was like 15, 16, 17, like kind of like absolutely obsessed with Guitar Hero. And then Rock Band, by that point I was probably, 18, 19. And one of the things that I loved about it, even though me and my pals were still playing guitar on it, because that's all we could afford, the guitar, we were using our Guitar Hero controllers on Rock Band, was I think they, the campaign, if you will, was a lot more in depth than Guitar Hero, which I thought was really cool. Guitar Hero, you just played the songs, you just went through. Whereas Rock Band, all of a sudden you could make your character, which Guitar Hero didn't do until later on. You could also make your set list, which Guitar Hero didn't do until later on. And you played gigs. It was like, this is your gig and this is the money you earn. And then it would be like, oh, if you play the encore and you get 90% on the encore, you'll get more money. And I think, although you've got the band now, all these little things just made it more in depth as well, which I thought was really cool. And I guess it comes back to the community feel of it as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think I wanted something that had that. I think, like their whole, like the designers, like Rob Kay and I think it was Dan Teasdale and Chris Foster at that point, were all brilliant designers, as well as like everybody who was in a band in the company giving feedback about what it felt like and trying to like recreate some of the like venues that they had played at and various stuff like that. There's all like the number of references to Boston and Cambridge, like rock venues and stuff in there is pretty incredible. Like it is such a love letter to the city of Boston's like music scene.
And every band's kind of played a small and they like, started off small and then
So obviously you mentioned, at this point, MTV are the owners, they're the bosses, they, and that helps, getting you the music, getting the real music as well. For the first few Guitar Hero games, it was all covers, like you mentioned. One of the most interesting things that I think came from MTV, playing their part was, what was it like taking Rock Band to the Grammys? What was that like?
Like that was one of the craziest things ever. So I did that 2 years in a row. And they had a gifting tent outside of the Grammys for like the Grammys weekend. And there were just so many wild stories from that. I'll just pick a few here. So we would just set up. So the first year, like, I don't even think, had the game even come out yet? Or maybe it had just come out the first time we went to the Grammys. Yeah, I think the game had just come out the first time we went to the Grammys. And, all these artists are coming through who, I'm a huge music nerd. I loved it. So it was like Herbie Hancock comes through and I'm just like, dude, and nobody in the tent cares. Like they're like, who, whatever big star was at the time, like they're coming. It's like, that's Herbie Hancock. Like, that's jazz right there. That's like the coolest, like funk dude ever. Like, it's amazing. And meeting him, and then like Prince came through, which to me was like, oh, God's coming through today. That's cool. That's fine. And they were like, don't make eye contact with Prince. And it's like, yeah, why would I? That's crazy. And I think was it that year? Or was it the year afterwards? This was so weird. Is we sat down with this young, hip hop R&B. Soul couple, who were playing together. They wanted to play Rock Band together and they were having a cute time. And that was Rihanna and Chris Brown, the weekend when that famous event happened, which was just like, it was horrible. Like it was legitimately traumatizing just to hear what that happened. It was just truly messed up. I remember like I know it was the second year. I think Taylor Swift had just happened and she came through the tent. And I remember being like, cause she was just like bare, like 17, 18. I'm like, I don't know who this kid is. I literally don't know who this kid is, but everybody's flipping out. And it was kind of cool. I know, that time I played with Moore's Day and The Time. I got to play Rock Band with Moore's Day and The Time.
That's cool.
Which was pretty intense. Kate Beckinsale came through with her daughter, Lily, and I played, and I had to play Rock Band with Lily while my coworker John Drake and Kate Beckinsale sat off to the side, and she wanted to play No Doubt and wanted me to sing I'm Just a Girl. And then Kate Beckinsale and John Drake laughed at me the entire time, which was legitimately one of the funniest things.
I'd be mortified if I had to sing.
If I ever see either of them, Kate or Lily at any point, that's
your next cover, Joe.
So, you mentioned this is a couple of years later, and we'll go back to some of the community stuff in a moment, but it feels good to put it here. The Beatles Rock Band was cool. I remember when I first saw that and it was like, I wonder what else, is going to come out. And I can't remember which one came first. Feel like it was the Beatles Rock Band. And then we started getting, and then Guitar Hero jumped on it with Aerosmith and stuff like that. But tell us all about the Danny Harrison story, George Harrison's son. How did,
Yeah. So we did a lot with Danny because Danny, who's just just a fantastic person, fantastic artist. And you know, but yeah, no one's going to hear this. Like, just between me and you guys, nobody else quote this. George was absolutely my favorite Beatle, hands down, not even close. Like the songs he wrote are all of my favorite Beatles songs. Like not even close. His solo career. I know this is not what people normally, that's not the most normal thing, but his solo career, I love everything that he did after that. I mean, the Traveling Wilburys, I still listen to, volumes 1 and 3, I think is what he calls it. Cause I don't think they didn't do a 2 because they thought it'd be a funny joke. George Harrison is just my favorite. So getting to travel around with Danny, we did a lot of, so the community team and Harmonix, we really wanted to keep the authenticity. So we knew that hiring out and just like hiring people to like go and do these things for us, it wouldn't feel authentic. So we made sure to have like a pretty big community team. I had a number of people working under me. I think had about like 9 people at our peak. So we would travel to all these events and we would kind of like do them ourselves. I was on the road for like 250 days out of the year, traveling around to all these events and stuff. And we would travel around with Danny, like, Danny showed up so Danny is the reason why the game happened in the first place. Cause he was a big into Guitar Hero. He thought it would be cool and he was into Rock Band and he kind of did it. So he stayed very much involved. He helped with the design of it and getting it through, you know, Beatles approvals. And
I was wondering as well, didn't Michael Jackson buy like all the Beatles rights to the records as well? Was there anything to do with that? Or?
I don't know if he had all of them. He had some of them. And I know there had been, I remember because I think it was, I want to say what year did he
2010.
Because I think it was like right around the same time.
I think, or 2009.
Yeah. So people were wondering what was going to happen. Yeah, and that's when the game came out was 2009. So we were like, oh my God, what's going to happen with these rights? And the truth of the matter was, it wasn't like Michael Jackson, like he owned a lot of he had a lot of ownership rights, as I understand, to it, but like not all of it. And it wasn't like he was managing it on a day-to-day basis. It wasn't like he was logging into his computer and seeing, you know, Michael Jackson just logging in with his glove on and then just like checking to see who was asking for the Beatles rights. It was all managed through, as I recall, it was Sony. Sony Music was handling the rights. So they were doing all that. But then also, you know, the Beatles, of course, had approval over everything. And, you know, they visited, you know, Paul visited, I think. Ringo, I don't know if he came to the offices. He came to when we announced it at E3 that year. Yoko definitely came to the offices and hugged everybody in the entire place and all of that. But yeah, Danny was super involved and traveled to a bunch of things. We did it's one of my favorite stories is with Danny was we did the GameStop Managers Conference. So, you know, 4,000, whatever it was, GameStop managers in Las Vegas at I can't remember which casino, hotel it was or resort was. But they had this, where they would do like UFC fights. So they had this arena for like thousands
between the managers.
No.
To fight each other. My store's the best.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Be like, who is the top guy? But they had this hotel casino where they would generally put on the UFC fights. That's where they did their keynote to all of the GameStop managers. And we ended up they were like, well, this is going to be the big thing we're selling this year. So they invited us out to kind of kick off the show by coming up on stage and starting with like 2 Beatles songs. And I can't remember which songs they were, but we had picked them. We cleared them ahead of time and all of that. Cleared them. We had to clear them with the Beatles, as I recall, or something like that. And we're backstage because this was really like a very professional sort of like set, professional lighting. I don't think we had fireworks or anything, pyrotechnics, but it wouldn't have surprised me. But we're backstage and it was me and like a couple of the other community members like Aaron and Aaron Treitz and a few other folks and then Danny. And the plan was for Danny to go up on stage, and then we would be behind, and I think I was going to be playing bass, and he was going to be playing guitar, and somebody else was going to be playing other guitar, and then somebody else was going to be on. Oh, Alex Rogopoulos, who started harmonics with Aaron Agozi. He was going to be on drums. And we're backstage, and then there was a change to what song we could play. And it was a song going from I think it was a Paul song that we were originally going to play. And then they had changed it to now we had to play one of John's songs. And Danny was going to sing and all of that. And Danny's like, Sean, you can't, I can't sing this. And I'm like, wait, like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not allowed. I can't sing a John song, because if I sing a John song, then probably like Yoko's going to have a problem with that part in a face fronting thing. So to avoid the trouble, can you just do it? So I had to like jump up and like suddenly start like perform singing Beatles songs while I think I was also playing bass at the same time and singing one of these John songs. And it was just to 4,000 people suddenly, when I was hoping I was just going to be able to stand in the back and just kind of twiddle away. But that was very, very nerve-wracking, and it just kind of like showed a little bit about how it all worked. It felt like being part of the Beatles briefly.
Internal dynamics of the Beatles. Recent
and they're all lovely.
Film.
Like everybody we met from the Beatles was absolutely lovely to us, so supportive of the project, genuinely nice, and really creatively like involved and interested. I think Paul once said this is the first thing that we all agreed on. That this game was like the first thing where we didn't get any fights about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, seeing that recent documentary, with the footage of them in the studio and stuff, you can tell it's there's lots of different things that they don't agree on and stuff. So it's great to have something unifying, especially getting the Beatles in a video game. It's like, it's got to happen that way, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because they really are like, when you're that big, I mean, they're functionally like, it's not just a band, it's a multinational corporation, right? Where there's various stakeholders. And of course, everybody is going to be looking out for their stake and protecting the legacies of, either themselves or their family members. And it was so interesting to see that, and so interesting to see how they would resolve things. Like they were genuinely cool about it. Like, and it was cool working with like George Martin and Giles Martin. And that's who we worked with the most over there, was the engineers, and just geniuses, both of them. So it was really, really, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, because it is such like a crazy, it doesn't feel real, if I'm honest with you. It still doesn't really feel real.
I was wondering, it was a really interesting time as well, because you had the forums, as you mentioned, with all the fans on them, and then like social media took over, and I guess communities started to change and move. What was that change like? And do you think the forums kind of stayed for a lot longer than people predicted?
Yeah, I kind of thought, because Rock Band came out in 2007. Twitter came out in basically the same time. I remember being at South by Southwest, and we were doing demos for people there, and like Twitter was doing demos right near us. And just thinking, oh, this is an interesting idea. I didn't necessarily think it would completely take over right away, because the limits on how long you're posting your messages could be. And I just knew from, if you look at Reddit or anything like that, which is, I think, probably the closest thing to what our forums were like, people wrote long things. I would sometimes write a 2-page like post just to get people going or something like that. And you can't do that on Twitter. But we ended up doing a lot with social media, because we realized it was just fun. Like we could just do fun, goofy stuff on there and kind of, expand our reach a little bit that way. But I didn't think it would immediately take over, but I also didn't think, once it started hitting, I didn't think the forums would last as long as they did. No way.
Do you think video game companies kind of often sideline fans and communities, and what could they be doing better to engage with the communities and get them involved?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times, this was kind of the case too. You could even see it at that time, which was we were so hands-on with our community. And it was hard because we had basically two types of fans. There were fans fans who played the game because they really liked music, and that was the thing they were super nerdy about. They didn't necessarily play on hard or difficult, any expert or, anything like that. They just wanted to play along to songs and just hear songs that they liked and just play along to them and have a good time. Then there was the other people who were like, I don't care at all what music is playing at any point. I just want it to be super difficult. Like, I only want Muse and only want Rush and only want like the most Dragon Force, like the most complicated like stuff, because that's the part I care about. And it took me a little bit by surprise too, because I think I underestimated how much those two communities would hate each other. Like, really genuinely dislike one another. And as we started, going, we eventually got it to the point where they all got along for the most part. Like, we had a very manicured community. We took care of them. We listened to them. And a lot of it, what it was it wasn't just like banning every single person who was a jerk. It was taking them aside, talking to them, learning from them, making sure that everybody felt heard. I don't think people do that anymore. There's certainly places that do that, but it's not as common as you'd think. But one thing I know is, people who play video games, any sort of consumer, you don't want to be just considered like data. You don't want to just be considered like, a consumer. You want to feel like you're part of something bigger.
And there's loads of different play styles as well. And, sometimes I think video game users are just seen as like one defined play style. And like you said, there's loads of difference there.
Yeah, and it's not like, there's all sorts of different things. And a lot of times people will butt heads and everything, but if you can make them feel like they are heard, listened to, and part of something much, much larger than themselves, it changes what a community is. And I still think we had one of the best communities that have ever existed in games. Not to toot my own horn, I had a great team. I still love the people who I worked with on my team. I think they're some of the greatest community managers who ever did it. But it was that attention to detail, attention to what people cared about, and making them feel heard, and not really lying to them. Like if they were like, the only way I'm going to be happy is if we get 10 Muse songs next week. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. But I will pass that on, and I'm happy to pass that on. But that's not going to happen. They feel at least somebody listened to them.
Did you
Yeah.
give much time? There was a big hacking scene at the time as well, with people hacking Rock Band and Guitar Hero and obviously putting their own songs on there, especially before, it all kind of blew up online as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was there much attention paid to that in terms of like, because obviously, I mean, I'll say it, me and my friends used to hack Guitar Hero and we used to put our own songs in there. Yeah.
You're under arrest.
But, the biggest one was like, and I know this was Guitar Hero, but, Dragon Force was put on there because it was hard, and then heaven behold, Dragon Force was then on Guitar Hero 3. Was that something that was paid attention to? Was that listened to? Like, these are the songs people are putting into these hacks. You know what, they're onto something there. Let's have a chat with that band. Was that ever like a thing, or was there any attention paid there, or was it just completely separate?
I think it might have been completely separate in a lot of ways, because the team that was doing the music licensing and going out was kind of detached from all of that in many, many ways. It was Paul DeGoyer and his team at MTV, and they would do it. And nothing but the utmost respect for Paul DeGoyer, like an absolute genius at what he does, and just love him deeply. Wonderful man. But they would I think they had kind of their own strategy and whatever. And we'd pass stuff on, and certain things, if certain things blew up, I think that maybe a little bit more attention was paid to it. But, they were talking to like whole record labels, and there would also be like a record label would be like, well, we don't want to go with this band yet. We want to push this thing a little bit. Or MTV would be like, yes, some more Dragon Force would be great, but we have a new season of iCarly coming out. So we need to do some of the iCarly songs, which literally happened. And the fans did not like that, even though those songs were not bad. They were actually fairly decent.
It was quite interesting. I think it opened the world up to fans as well. I knew guys that were like street gangsters, and they'd come up and they'd be like, hey, Can you play Dragon Force? It's like something that would never usually happen. Yeah. I think, was there a bit of like bands trying to really get on there and, pressurize and try and do deals?
Not at first. At first, it was kind of the opposite direction. I feel like there's bands that are like, I don't want people pretending they can friggin' play my songs. Like, I'm not doing that. That's horrible. Like, that's so bad. And there was like certainly lots of bands that kind of felt that way, but then certain bands were kind of getting onto it. And then there were just bands that we liked that we wanted to, put over again. Like, I know the band Boston, which obviously was from our hometown of Boston. We got their multi-tracks, and they recorded in the 70s, and they had kept their multi-tracks, which was part of the problem why there were so many early like re-records of songs, of older songs, which was because bands just didn't have multi-tracks anymore. So you couldn't do that. But so there was a lot of bands that but I think as it went, more bands wanted to come into it, which is why I was so excited. And at the time, I think I was even more excited for this than Rock Band, or for Rock Beatles Rock Band, was the Rock Band Network, was when we put in the functionality for people to actually start authoring their own songs and then put them into the game for download. And, for money and for be able to make some money on the side while they're functionally hacking the game legally and all of that. I think there was just something so democratic about that I thought was really, really neat. And some of those bands blew up, and they weren't very big bands, but they just had difficult songs or fun songs, and it went over really, really well.
I think it's really interesting, the world of like video game communities and how they've changed. I know you're huge on community management. You've been doing stuff like Twitch as well, and you're also doing a lot of stuff with PR. Have you seen lots of stuff like reboots happen and Kickstarters and, gamers kind of getting brands and reviving them and helping them grow? What do you think's in line for the future of, video game fans and communities and driving the kind of video game scene?
Oh God, I hope there's kind of like more of that. It's so neat to see, especially like this year. I feel like this year has been interesting because the biggest games released, or at least the games that everybody was talking about, were generally not the big studio games.
Yeah.
Or if the people were talking about the big studio games, it generally wasn't in a positive way whatsoever. But then you have games like, Clair Obscur, or like Dispatch, or I was just playing Promise Mascot Agency, which is probably my game of the year, best game I played all year. But these like smaller games with smaller communities that sort of like blow up and becomes the shared interest of it becomes so interesting. So I don't know if we necessarily are going to have these positive mega communities anymore. Even Fortnite doesn't really have that at this point. I think it's turned into something kind of different. But there's chances for these smaller games to break through and really find a community that supports them and puts them over is so exciting to me. And I just hope it keeps growing.
It's kind of like rocket fuel, isn't it? Having that community behind you with a title and pushes innovative stuff forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. Like the greatest marketing you can have is word of mouth. So if you have a community of people who are trumpeting how good your game is and how good the developers are, like if they, I've found that like if you are the sort of developer or sort of studio that responds to people's complaints online or goes into people's reviews on your game and you go, oh man, thank you. Like, thanks for that good review. Or if somebody says something negative about it and you're just like, oh, I'm sorry about that. Like, we'll definitely take a look at it. Like, whatever. And they think you're cool and they think you're like listening to them. You see those games do well. Like those games end up going along. They end up having strong communities. And those people go on to tell their friends and their friends. And you feel like, again, it's about the feeling of feeling like you're not just alone in your room playing a game. You're part of something larger. And I feel like there's studios that do that succeed.
My last question is going to be is obviously, a big part of your role was, like you said, you 250 days of the year out on the road, going around in these big 18-wheeler trailers, which would open up and then you'd essentially have, a concert, inside of them. Obviously setting them up at like, you know, events that are now gone as well, you know, like E3 and stuff like that. How important do you think gaming events are to the community? And do you think, you know, with so many events kind of like coming and going over the years, do you think we'll see, you know, people seeking those physical events again in the future? Do you think we might see a resurgence of that? Or do you think they've had their time?
I do, but with a major caveat. And that caveat being that I think the way, guys, I hope this gets me in trouble. The way that gaming conventions are done currently, the ones that exist right now, these large super events that are very, very, very much for profit, run by sort of like corporations that clearly don't care about the community.
A bit soulless, kind of.
And these events that I used to love going to, I just don't anymore. And admittedly, I'm getting old. I'm in my late 40s. There's certainly a possibility that that might have something to do with it. But I think more to the point is it doesn't have that feel like a convention should be a community event. Like it should feel at all points like it's other people who care about this who put it together. And then every aspect of that convention is going to sing. Everything's going to, that feeling of love. I remember going like the early PAX, like Penny Arcade Expo, and feeling like this is the greatest thing ever for 3 days. I'm going to be exhausted with people who are exactly like me, and we are going to hang out, and this is going to be fun. It's like, it felt like a family reunion every single time. I loved it. I don't really like going quite as much anymore because it's a completely different thing. It's not really run by the community. It's run by a corporation. And I think most of these are, and they're kind of run by the same companies.
We've had some huge ones collapse in the UK recently. And as that's happening, other ones are emerging as well. So it's a interesting time. And I think obviously with COVID as well, that was a huge
that was the reset
that came in.
Yeah. That really reset things. And I do hope it comes back, because I think that I'm a big proponent that, like, I love single player games, love them. Almost don't play multiplayer games at all. But I love talking to other people about them. And I love hanging out with other people and talking about them. I love standing next to a person who's also playing a game for the first time and then talking about it. And I just love those old school sort of conventions that really were about the fans, made by the fans, made by the community, for the community. So if we can return to that and we get more, even if they're smaller in scale, like who cares? Like I don't need 120,000 people at a convention to feel seen. It can be like 2,000 people at a convention, but everybody's cool. Like, great. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I want some more of that. Like that's
GDC started in the living room. So
oh man, old GDC was the best. Yeah.
Well, Sean, it's been amazing having you on. I've really enjoyed it, and I think there's still videos of Joe somewhere on YouTube playing.
There is.
You're gonna have to send it to me. I'm gonna see this.
Thank you so much for coming on, Sean. Cheers.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.